Clifford Joseph King Harris III was born on August 25, 2004, into one of hip-hop's most famous families. His father is a rap legend, his mother is an R&B icon, and the world watched him grow up on reality TV, music. But cameras don't raise children, and fame, especially the kind you didn't choose, has a way of twisting a life before it even begins. So, let's talk about how King Harris ended up here. In 2004, Clifford Joseph King Harris III was born in Atlanta, Georgia, to rapper T.Y. and singer Tamika Cottle. His father, Clifford Joseph Harris Jr., was, at that point, one of the fastest rising names in Southern hip-hop. T.I. is credited as a pioneer of the hip-hop subgenre trap music, alongside fellow Georgia-based rappers Jeezy and Gucci Mane. His mother, music known to the world as Tiny, was a founding member of the multi-platinum R&B group Xscape. Together, they were hip-hop royalty, and King was their prince, literally named to carry on his father's full legal name. But being born into that kind of spotlight comes with a unique set of problems. Music. For one, King didn't just have famous parents. He had busy, famous parents. The kind of busy where the touring schedule runs year-round, the kind of busy where studio sessions bleed into press runs. Music, and press runs bleed into film sets, and somewhere along the way, the kids see more of their grandmother than they see of their mother or father. King grew up in a large blended family, including half-siblings such as Zonique Pullins, Messiah, Damani, and Deja, many of whom are active in music and entertainment. The Harris household was full of children, are full of energy and full of cameras, and that last part matters more than people realise. In 2011, the VH1 reality series T.I. and Tiny, The Family Hustle, first aired and ran for 6 seasons. The show was presented as giving viewers an intimate look into the domestic lives of T.Y. and Tiny as they navigated parenthood and their careers. King was 7 years old when the cameras showed up. He didn't audition. He didn't sign a contract. He was a child who happened to be born into a family that decided to televise its daily life for millions of viewers. And here's the part that changes everything about how you see King Harris. Years later, in a 2023 interview on Funny Marco's Open Thoughts, King said the show didn't portray his reality. As he lived at his grandmother's house, Mahi explained that he would only visit his parents' house to shoot episodes of the TV show. That's what he said. He said the big house, the family dinners, and the picture of domestic togetherness were for the cameras. Music. When the crew packed up and left, King went back to his grandmother's place. This wasn't just some passing comment. Even the show itself hinted at this dynamic. On VH1's own episode description, it notes that T.I. and Tiny's son, King, had been staying with his grandmother, and she'd been spoiling him rotten. And when it was time to come home, T.I. and Tiny were faced with trying to discipline their wild child. His own sister, Zonique Pullins, music, corroborated something similar. Zonique opened up about her mother, Tiny, music, not being as present as she would have liked in her childhood. So she said, "I would say what hurt me is, honestly, my mum being with Tip all the time." She added that her parents were tied at the hip. Wherever one went, the other went too, and that left the children behind. Now, this is not to demonise T.I. or Tiny. Both of them clearly love their children, but love and presence are not the same thing. And for a young boy being raised primarily by his grandmother, while cameras filmed a version of family life that didn't match what he was living, that disconnect does something to a person, especially when the whole world believes the version they saw on television. And then, there's the matter of T.Y.'s own legal troubles, which created massive absences in King's life at the most formative ages. To understand King Harris, you have to understand the revolving door that kept his father away. In March 2009, T.I. was sentenced to a year and a day in prison in a plea deal in relation to federal weapons charges. King was 4 years old. 4. the age when a boy starts forming his deepest ideas about what a man is, what a father does, and what the rules of the world look like. And at that age, his father was being escorted out of a federal courtroom in a grey suit. The background of T.Y.'s arrest was not some minor misunderstanding. He was caught in a federal sting after his bodyguard turned informant and delivered 3 machine guns and 2 silencers to him. T.I. was not permitted to own any guns because he was convicted in 1998 on felony drug charges, possession of crack cocaine with intent to distribute. This was a man who had been tangled up in the criminal justice system since he was a teenager. T.I. first began dealing drugs as a teenager, and by the age of 14, he had already been arrested several times. T.I. served his time, was released, and then, less than 6 months later, it happened again. Music. In September 2010, he was arrested in Los Angeles on drug charges after authorities said he was found with 4 ecstasy pills. Music. He was sentenced in October 2010 to 11 months in prison for the parole violation. King was now 6, and his father was gone again. Between the ages of 4 and 7, King Harris experienced his father going to prison twice. During the same stretch, T.Y. and his wife, Tiny, were arrested for drug charges together. In September 2010, both parents were arrested at the same time. Even if King were too young to understand the legal details, children feel absence. They feel chaos. They feel the tension in a household, the whispered phone calls, and the grandmother who suddenly holds them tighter because she knows what's coming. T.I. He himself has talked about this openly with remorse. Standing in that courtroom in 2010, he told the judge, "I screwed up. I screwed up big time, and I'm sorry." He said, "I don't want and I don't need music to use drugs anymore. I want them out of my life." And to his immense credit, T.I. did turn things around. He stayed out of prison. Music. He rebuilt his career. He became an activist and a mentor. But the damage was already done to a little boy in Atlanta who spent the most important years of his childhood waiting for his father to come home, music, while his grandmother tried to fill a gap that no grandmother, no matter how loving, can fully fill. There's a cruel pattern that plays out in families where the father figure cycles in and out of incarceration. The son often ends up mimicking the very behavior that took his father away, not out of admiration, but out of a deep, unspoken attempt to understand his father's world. If the streets took my dad, the logic goes, music, then maybe I need to understand the streets. Maybe I need to prove I can survive them too. And that is precisely the path King Harris began walking music down. By the time King Harris was a teenager, the pattern was emerging clearly enough for anyone paying attention. Music. In 2020, King was filmed fighting in a school bathroom. He was 15 or 16 at the time, a high schooler at Dutchtown High School in Hampton, Georgia, and the video spread widely online. For the son of T.Y. and Tiny, this wasn't just a scuffle between kids. Music. It became a national news story. Every headline attached his parents' names to his worst moments. Then came the Waffle House. In May 2022, video footage showed King Harris getting into a heated dispute with several employees at a local Waffle House after his order was messed up with unwanted pickles. Music. He was 17, and the way the situation unfolded was the opposite of what you'd expect from someone who grew up around wealth and privilege. Music. He recorded the entire encounter on Instagram Live. He went on a profanity-laced tirade, hopped on the counter, and threatened Music to fight an employee. He later walked outside but continued to taunt the employee and even threatened to pistol whip him. Music. The internet reacted exactly how you'd expect. People dragged him. People dragged his parents. The comment sections were merciless. Music. But T.I.'s response was telling. Rather than making a big emotional statement, he responded in a video simply asking why his son's altercation was even considered newsworthy. That was a father trying to protect his son while simultaneously knowing his son was in the wrong. It was a man trapped between loving his child and knowing the world was watching every failure. King Harris had found himself getting in trouble with the law and also facing backlash for aligning himself with the streets. His persona on social media leaned heavily into a tough, street-oriented image. Guns, aggressive language, confrontational energy. T.I. Arndt explained on Club Shay Shay with Shannon Sharpe that his son had only acted up because he didn't want to live off of the success of his parents. He shared King's own words, "I just don't want to be a celebrity's kid. I don't want to live off of y'all's success. I don't want to have to just be in y'all's shadow." I added something that was both sympathetic and sobering. He wants a clean slate. I tried to tell him he'll never have that. You were born with it. You can't give it back. That right there is the tragedy distilled into a single exchange. A son who wants to be his own man, free from the shadow of his father's name, and a father telling him that freedom was never an option, that the name he carries, the face he wears on camera since he was 7, and the public perception that was shaped before he could even read, all of that is permanent. The legal trouble kept stacking. King was arrested in September of 2022 for charges that included not wearing a seatbelt while driving. He was also arrested prior to that for allegedly assaulting a Waffle House employee. T.I. did not hold back this time. He publicly acknowledged the severity of the situation. His A is going to prison if he keeps that up. Music. His A is going to prison. He also said that he tried to discipline his son while raising him, but now it was up to King. He has gotten all the whoppings and punishment, did everything as a child you could do to him. So, music, now you're going to have to go through it and get through it. A father watching his son walk toward the same cliff he himself had fallen off and realizing he might not be able to stop it. November 2023, the Atlanta Falcons versus the New Orleans Saints. The Harris family was in attendance, and what happened that day became one of the most viral moments in the family's entire public history. T.I. and his son, King Harris, got into a public argument over King's upbringing at the game. King was on Instagram Live broadcasting to thousands when the argument erupted in real time. Music. The dispute began during the game when Harris appeared on Instagram Live while arguing with both of his parents about music, his upbringing. He claimed he had been raised primarily by his grandmother rather than in luxury, a statement that T.I. and Tiny disputed in real time. This was the silver spoon argument. T.I. essentially told King he was born with advantages, that he grew up with access and wealth and opportunity. King pushed back. He said the reality TV version of his childhood was not what he actually lived, that he didn't grow up in that big house, and that his grandmother raised him. The discussion turned to King's alleged childish behavior, with Tiny revealing he sucked a pacifier until he was 12 years old. And then it escalated further. I put his son in a headlock and said, "You're embarrassing yourself and your family. Boy, you can't do anything with me." All of this on camera in a stadium. Music, with people watching in person and thousands more watching online. After the incident, King took to social media with a raw, unfiltered message. Music, he posted, "I stand on business. Don't give a fake who you are. I'm a grown man now. If I'm a mistake, say that." Music, stop making the world think you speak with me when you don't. That word mistake hangs heavily in the air. A 19-year-old publicly questioning whether his own parents consider him an error, whether the love he sees on TV is real, or whether the family image was ever anything more than a production. Music. Less than a year later, in October 2024, the situation escalated legally once more. King was arrested in Dunwoody, Georgia, after being pulled over while driving a BMW. Police reported that he nearly collided with a patrol car when leaving a gas station. When the officer approached the vehicle, they detected the odor of marijuana and found Harris carrying a firearm on his hip. The arrest was for failure to appear in court. His warrant stemmed from an incident in August 2022 where he was charged with speeding, knowingly driving a motor vehicle on a suspended license, and driving under the influence of drugs. This was happening while King was about to become a father himself. Earlier that month, T.I. had announced that King was expecting his first child, Music. A baby on the way, a gun on his hip, an outstanding warrant, and a BMW that nearly hit a police cruiser. The symbolism writes itself. T.I. In his own way, he tried to use humour to mask the pain, referring to his troubled middle child. T.I. joked, "I will raise this child to torture you the way you tortured me. I promise you there will be an indictment in this young one." It was a joke. But the word indictment coming out of a father's mouth about his grandchild, even in jest, Music tells you everything about the cycle this family has been trapped in. I had also directly chastised King in a viral video where the young rapper was seen waving a gun during a music video shoot. King defended himself, stating that it wasn't illegal to have a gun, to which his father said, "Well, in the manner in which you are portraying this lifestyle, this doesn't look legitimate, sir." I added something that cut to the bone. "This ain't free. This comes at a cost. Music. Why y'all don't make some calm, love music? Y'all got girls out here. Why don't you talk about being in love, man?" A father who built his own career on trap music begging his son not to live the life those lyrics describe. Music. That is the weight of generational consequence. The thing about King Harris that makes his story so painful is that it's not a story without hope. It's a story where hope keeps flickering on and off, and you never know which version of King you're going to see next. Music. By mid-2024, there were signs that the tide was turning. King Harris was making headlines for his apparent growth and maturity, leaving behind a troubled past, marked by public disputes and negative headlines. During a candid conversation on the Me and Halo YouTube series with T.I. and 2 Chainz, King addressed his upbringing and responsibilities, and his comments suggested he was moving away from the misguided street persona that had defined much of his teenage years. He talked about not wanting to be a freeloader. He said his goal was to have his own place. Music for fans noticed, and they responded with encouragement. The father and son reconciled, and King has evidently matured since becoming a father to his son, King Jr. In a 2025 podcast interview, King offered a striking description of his relationship with T.I. He said, "Me and my dad, man, we had a relationship like it was to the point where he knew me. I knew him. But it was almost like Ghost and Tarek in Power, bro." For those who watched the Stars series, that comparison is loaded. Ghost and Tarek were a father and son, Music, constantly at odds, and the show ended with the son killing his father. King acknowledged Music the intensity of the analogy, but explained the point was about frustrated understanding, not violence. He said, "All that's going to come, but I'm young, bro. You got to give me time to change. Us, bro." King added that while he understands his father's frustration, T.I.'s whole goal was for his son to not portray himself as hood, and King wanted something from his father, recognition that he built something on his own. He said he wants T.I. to know that he's hustled on his own and doesn't want to be discredited. Then, in early 2026, the 50 Cent situation happened. Music. The much-publicised back and forth between T.I. and 50 Cent took over timelines in February when the Harris family, T.Y. and Sons Damani, and King released a slew of diss tracks aimed at 50. King entered the feud after 50 posted an unflattering photo of Tiny on his Instagram. He released a diss track called Made Man and posted pointed messages on social media. But King also went too far. He wore a shirt with 50 Cent's deceased mother on it, on a move that even T.I. called out. "I said that's enough when I saw that T-shirt," the Atlanta rapper said. I admitted he was proud of how both his sons defended their mother, but he also made clear he gained zero enjoyment out of his sons jumping into the beef. Music. That tension, pride in your son's loyalty, mixed with fear about where that loyalty leads, is the tightrope T I has been walking for years. Most recently, in April 2026, King cleared the air after TY's viral revelation that his son casually asks for $100,000 like it's nothing. King said when he approaches his father for money, those conversations are rooted in business plays and investment opportunities, framing the six-figure conversation as part of a bigger plan to build rather than just spend. He's pursuing a music career under the name Kid Cyan Music, and his new project OG Win recently dropped. And that's where the tragedy of King Harris lives. Not in some single catastrophic event, but in the grinding ongoing tension between who he was told he is, who the cameras said he is, and who he actually wants to become. He's a young man who grew up in a house that wasn't really his, who watched his father go to prison before he learned to read, who was broadcast to millions before he understood what fame means, who carries his father's full legal name and all the weight that comes with it, who has a son of his own now and is supposed to somehow break a cycle that started before he was born. T.I. He has had his own dealings with the law, including arrests for drug and weapons convictions, and even served time in prison. The streets didn't let T.I. go easily, and now those same streets are calling his son. By choosing public school and spending time living with his grandmother while his parents traveled for work, King built a strong, relatable foundation. But he also learned early on that money must be earned. The question is whether that foundation holds, whether the reconciliation sticks, whether the fatherhood reshapes him, whether the music career gives him the identity he's so desperately searching for. Because the tragedy of King Harris isn't that he failed, it's that the system around him, the fame, the cameras, the absent father, the curated reality, and the pressure of the name set him up to struggle before he ever had a chance to choose his own path. And every time he claws his way towards something better, and the next headline, music, drags him back into the story the world already wrote for him. That's the cycle. Music. And breaking it might be the hardest thing King Harris ever does.